Shiro's first appearance is in chapter 177, Tavern. This is after Danzel ran away from the merchant union. Shiro is seen eating multiple plates as Danzel hands over another plate full of fish. Shiro's appetite will stay in this as a factor that she has to deal with. Chapter 253 shows why the old man traveled and risked Shiro despite being his loving granddaughter. With a good teacher, Vilker, Shiro shows off her magical abilities and skills in chapter 257. Shiro shows off water and electricity at the same time. She's holding it in her hands, and the balls are actually away from her, making her like either a centerpiece or, back and forth. So she has a very high prowess with magic. Something that Danzel is incredibly new and only knows by, according to Velker, by the books. Shiro is very knowledgeable in magical arts as a third tier. Velker even acknowledges Shiro's vast magical growth, saying that he wishes he could take her. However, there is a barrier between them and an angry fourth tier, if that ever even was attempted. Shiro and Danzel trade magical teachings. This is whenever the Death Skulls group is separated entirely. Shiro and Danzel trade magical teachings through fighting and through teaching with the Anabas. This is from chapter 444. With how little there is of Shiro, she has a lot of potential. She may also explain how magic and life force works when she starts getting her own chapters, if this ever continues. Like she was teaching the Anabas, as an example. When a character is stated to be smart, expressed to be over most in a verse, but has no actual showings or evidence to show said person is strong or relevant, like Shiro being a third tier, this group is the prodigy or potential man. Shiro will keep training with Danzel until tier 5. And Shiro uses light, fire, air, ice, water, electricity, earth, and chaos. Shiro will make a spell to learn farming, be a gardener, or magically grow food for many families to sustain herself. She will also take up Danzel's recommendations to learn teleportation and flight. Shiro will have a monologue in the 6 or 7 figures. This will be off of Danzel having 10,000 in chapter 312 as a third tier, and Velker having 40,000 in chapter 253. The reason why it's so high is because Shiro has an ability where she can have negative health. This will be moved to her having negative mana as well, and that will boost her mana. So she'll have negative mana, but it will be shifted forward. No video I've ever seen goes into this or explains what or where this is found. This is the reason for this introduction. Shiro, running with all of this, will be giving her a similar or greater potential than the Magus of the Tower. She will be 45 whenever she hits tier 5, so she has a great amount of experience with Damsel. There is also the fact that she is either a teenager or a young adult in this story. If Shiro keeps her childlike attitude throughout her training, or takes her training seriously and has a personality change, or changes undead, these are going to be factors and very real possibilities that are going to be taken into account. Shiro may also learn life and enchanting as she is close to it, and they are not far out of the realms of her ability to learn, although magic does seem to be the easiest and the most versatile, especially how Damsel runs around with it. With how chaotic Shiro will be, along with her versatility, outside of a war of attrition, or someone who will break through by sheer raw strength and speed, there may not be a good counter to her. This will give her the chance to get the abilities of Ken Uzal, the devil from chapter 211, less brutish and more of an uncounterable or predictable force. She is not a rock coming to crush you. She is water coming to drown you, as a famous YouTuber likes to go and say in these kinds of hypotheticals. She may also take the magic and the techniques from other races and add it to her own, or enhance her own magic. That's another reason why I gave her such a big pool to play with. A honed Shiro will be something like the Magus, or possibly even one of the liches. A precise, unbound by barriers, lethal entity that is best left alone, or will strip others in her tier of life. Even being tier 5 may not save you against her, which is not something we have seen that is common, but it still should be pointed out with how hard it is to actually pin her down with one or two abilities. Teleporting from one side of an area to another to cut down thousands, or possibly raising thousands of others, like a factory, pumping out endless amounts of tier 4s and 5s to be on her side, and just overwhelming the opponent or obstacle. Very possible if she's a well thought out and well constructed teacher, she could do that. And since she's going to be that powerful, she'll have the experience seeing how Danzel fights her, and he is incredibly good at fighting. The story even mentions that he handles a specific tier 4 that is known for his vast amounts of experience in combat. This will be the same for Shiro, but she will be in tier 5, along with all the other advantages stated. Shiro will be able to fight off several or possibly even dozens in tier 5 alone with this hypothetical, with the ability to feed potentially millions or billions. Her war effort will only be matched by the oldest kingdom, seeing how several tier 5s from the dynasty is insignificant compared to the other 2 kingdoms, and they simply don't want to be squished. And that's why they are fighting on 2 fronts and hurting both sides. In an unknown scenario, a very large hypothetical, Shiro may be able to climb to the same level as the goddess, with very powerful or unstoppable beings backing her up, like the phoenix with the goddess, and the goddess being questioned by Danzel. Is it a realm, or is it specifically the goddess carving out her own type of magic? Very, very possible, very hypothetical, but hey, there you go. Shiro is magic-tainted Oni. Her grandfather is estimated to be 1,300 years old. The max lifespan was given around 1,500. Shiro seems to be in her teens, or a naive young adult. So, in the very beginning of the story, chapter 7, what is 15 or 4,000 years to an elder lich? Nothing. Time where she can learn everything from Velker, the Magus, Nersenra, or the Council. With time or a area training that specifically slows down time, Shiro will be at the top 10 of the entire verse at such height. The greatest potential the world has ever seen, only behind Danzel himself. And that is because she has to manually see it. Only brought up a few sources that Shiro has very little with the story. Eventually, Shiro should lose her naivety and childish personality. So the other 2 that I mentioned, a honed or an undead, should be the more viable ones. It could also be a different storyline with her taking a honed approach, but through tough love. And that's how she'll build out towards everybody else, or potentially even becoming a parent. Also in the cards. Shiro should slowly side a certain way as an enthusiastic damsel or an overprotective father, or make other paths bumpy. Although Vanessa and Serdan may push Shiro's curiosity vaguely in another direction. So, Shiro summoning, dozens of devils is not out of the cards. Shiro summoning dozens of fourth tiers, or forcing fourth tiers to exist, or having thousands of orcs bend their knees to her, and her forcing every single one of them to become as powerful as the chieftain of the hunters. Very possible. Or potentially extracting every single person inside of the city that they are in, of the ice continent, and using all of their abilities to the absolute extremes. Very possible. Another one that she has is, if she learns how to teleport, she learns how to use the chaos magic, she could just essentially throw certain beams of basically existence erasure, and having the same ability with the Magus uses, with the spikes coming out of the ground, but instead of spikes it's walls, so it's just an infinite amount of walls that you can make. Lots of possibilities. The most versatile, only being held back by time and the fact that she has to manually learn this all by herself, mostly. Or Danzel gives her a part of the system and she explodes with just so much power. But that is the hypothetical to Shiro's potential of a tier 5, or possibly seeing a tier 5 in a certain way. Thanks.